So this this is a fight I never thought would happen, but apparently it's happened. This is um Marjorie Taylor Greene, um Republican absolute nutcase versus David Cameron. And probably for the first time in my life, I'm probably going to say this, I'm on David Cameron's side. So obviously what's happened? Well, just like many people in Europe now, they are trying desperately to try and get that Ukraine aid passed. It is passed in the Senate, and now it's going to the House. And this is the big worry again that isn't passed here. Now, remember, so far, this should have been passed 3 months ago. So there's already been this 3-month gap of where this aid should have gone. And this is already causing big problems on the front line. So people like David Cameron and other foreign secretaries have been trying their best to try and, get these people go, hey, you need to sort of get serious about this and, support Ukraine on this front. Because if not, you look like you're supporting Putin. But you tell us all the time you're not supporting Putin at all, but your actions tell us something completely different. And this has now caused David Cameron and Marjorie Taylor Greene to go head for head against each other. Again, a fight I never knew I wanted, but when you get it, I suppose you've got to support someone on this side, and at least Cameron once again here trying to get aid and that really crucial aid support to Ukraine. I do agree with him on that, and what he said about it. I do agree it needs to be passed, sooner rather than later, because the later this gets passed, the more this gets delayed, the more this helps Putin, especially with the situation currently going on in and around Avdiivka in Ukraine at the moment. So, kind of important. But let's get into this really dumb fight. Yes. Yeah. Oh boy. So before we go getting into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. There are a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there's the YouTube thank you button and the Pony Club as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. So let's have a look at this, because oh boy, this gets stupid very quickly. So Marjorie Taylor Greene has doubled down on her mistaken accusation that British Foreign Secretary David Cameron compared Republicans unwilling to support further aid to Ukraine to the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. She said, well, number one, I couldn't really care less what Lord Cameron has to say. I just don't care. She said to The Independent on Thursday. And number two, he was calling us Hitler and calling us horrible names. And that is extremely rude. He needs to stop making that association. He needs to consider what he is actually saying, she said. So I just don't care. He really needs to worry about his own country. I think over there, they're having all kinds of problems. They're entering a recession. They need to worry about their problems and leave our country alone. This comes after the hard-right Republican Congresswoman said that Lord Cameron can kiss my ass on Wednesday after he urged US Congress to pass the aid to Ukraine and to avoid repeating the mistake of the past, citing the appeasement of Hitler that led up to the Second World War. So bear in mind, he did not call these Republicans Hitler. What he said was he was comparing them to the appeasers that enabled the Second World War. And that if you don't, solve this problem now, all you are doing is setting up for a larger conflict in the future, which, again, is something very worthwhile bearing repeating that we've said a lot of the time. Putin isn't going to stop here. The idea that he is going to stop, or if someone else might decide, who maybe takes over after Putin, he's quite old. He's been around a long time. But someone else could take over and continue on that same path. Remember, they've got billboards up in Russia right now that say, the borders of Russia are endless, that they do not stop. That's quite worrying when you've got, people being, fed that message and stuff said to them like that, and a government that sort of does that stuff. Kind of worrying. So yeah. So here we are, back to it. So the Democrats in the Senate had already passed a bill which would send further aid to Ukraine, but the legislation now faces a steep uphill climb in the House. In an op-ed on Wednesday published by Cameron, it said, as Congress now debates the votes on the further funding package for Ukraine, I am going to drop all diplomatic niceties. I urge Congress to pass it. I believe our joint history shows the folly of giving in to tyrants in Europe who believe in redrawing boundaries by force, he said. I do not want us to follow and show that same weakness displayed against Hitler in the 1930s. He came back for more and costing us even far more in lives to try and stop this aggression. I do not want us to show weakness displayed against Putin back in 2008 when he invaded Georgia, or even the uncertainty of the response back in 2014 when he took Crimea and much of the Donbass, before coming back for more and far more with his aggression in 2022. Cameron, the former UK Prime Minister, said that I want us to show strength that we've displayed since 2022, as the West has helped Ukraine liberate over half of its territory seized by Putin without the loss of any NATO service personnel. I do not want to read it, but I know the British Embassy wanted me to read it, but I do not have. I have many other things to do rather than to read his op-ed. Greene said also on Thursday. Sky News also asked her and interviewed her and said, David Cameron says that you should vote through this funding from Ukraine. What do you say? She said, I think he tried to compare us to Hitler also, Greene said, mixing up the appeasers whose conduct Lord Cameron did cite and the Nazi leader. Greene has obviously previously faced criticism for making comments comparing the use of masks during the pandemic to the Holocaust. She later visited the Holocaust Museum in Washington to apologize for her remarks. Speaking about Cameron on Wednesday, Greene told Sky News that it's the kind of language he wants to use. I have really nothing to say to him. If he likened us to an appeaser for Hitler in not voting it through for funding for Ukraine, are you an appeaser for Putin? Matthew asks. I think I really do not care what David Cameron has to say, she said. I think it's very rude name calling. I do not appreciate any of that type of that language. And Cameron needs to worry about his own country. And frankly, you can kiss my ass, she added. So, yeah, a bizarre exchange based on the fact that she thinks he called all, Republicans Hitler. No, his op-ed piece is very quite clear. And again, something that I do very much agree with David Cameron on, that we need to get this money and help the aid go to Ukraine, because right now the price for peace is at an all-time low. If we do not help them sort this problem out now, then it is likely we are going to have to spend not only more money in the future, but potentially even more lives against what could be a very, very aggressive Russia, especially in the light of what we have seen with Ukraine, with not Ukrainian intelligence, Estonian intelligence came out with recently. So yeah, probably something we should definitely be concerned about. And I said before, Europe does really need to step up more, but it also doesn't help the fact that the Republicans themselves and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are basically trying to play political football over something incredibly important, and would personally love to see Ukraine go to hell in a handbasket just to prove a point against Biden. And yet, even worryingly, there is still a chance Trump could win, and he could very, very well easily throw Ukraine under the bus and just go, no more funding for you, unless you start ceasefire talks or something like that. Donald Trump could do all kinds of stuff that would really damage the Ukrainians, really damage them. So, that aid being delayed, the more it gets delayed, the worse it comes. It's already 3 months late at this point, so it needs to get there sooner rather than later. But of course, back to this, we'll finish this off. So during a visit to Poland on Thursday, the Foreign Secretary said that he's not someone who wants to, quote, lecture his American friends or tell the Americans what to do. But he added, we really do want to see Congress pass the money in support for Ukraine, economically, but crucially, militarily in the months ahead. Cameron said, we have to do everything we can do to make sure that Ukrainians succeed in the year and beyond. We must not let Putin think that he can outweigh us or outlast us. That's why this vote in Congress is so crucial. And I say this as someone who is not wanting in any way to lecture American friends or tell American friends what to do. I say it as someone who has a deep and abiding love of the United States for the democracy and their belief in freedom, and someone who really believes in the importance of our alliance. Yeah, you remember yesterday where this week where we've talked about, the two pillars of UK foreign policy, and that American pillar, depending on the elections in November, could very easily, very well get crumbled or just completely blown up by Donald Trump. So, yeah, a fight I didn't know that I need or really wanted, nor to the fact that once again I'm having to come out again and support David Cameron because he's 100% right in, of course, this Ukraine support and why Ukraine needs it and why it's so important that people like Green stop playing football just to try and score some cheap political point. That aid needs to get there now, and I think she is a Putin appeaser. I think she absolutely is. The more she stops this vote, the more she votes against it. Yeah, she's a Putin appeaser. And yet, if it does come to it, and let's say it does escalate, where is Green then going to stand? And once again, this goes to show why Europe needs to really sort out its own defense and not rely on America so much. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. But until then, we'll see you all next time.